Chaos erupted the moment Jack and Lily vanished without a trace, shattering the quiet rhythm of their small community and sparking one of the most intense searches the region has seen in years. From the first day, the disappearance of the two siblings in May 2025 pushed law enforcement, volunteers, and the children's relatives into a desperate race against time. And if you're following this developing story, make sure you hit the subscribe button and turn on your notifications so you don't miss any new updates as they unfold. In the weeks that followed, the search effort grew into a sprawling, multi-layered investigation. K-9 teams swept through open fields, wooded areas, and abandoned structures. Drones skimmed low over the treetops. Helicopters scanned the landscape from above, and volunteers walked miles at a time, combing through terrain inch by inch. Every corner, every ditch, every trail near the family's property was inspected repeatedly. What made the case even more urgent was the absence of clear leads, no confirmed sightings, no definitive trail to follow, and no obvious explanation for how two children could simply disappear. Throughout this period, investigators interviewed numerous individuals connected to the children, including Martel, who was among the last adults known to have been around Jack and Lily before they went missing. During his interview, one thing stood out: his repeated praise of the police. He seemed unusually eager to highlight their efforts, weaving compliments into nearly every response. His tone had a polished, ingratiating quality, almost as though he were trying to position himself favorably rather than simply provide information. While this alone does not imply guilt, it added a layer of complexity to an interview already filled with uncertainty. What made his answers even harder to pin down was the language he used, softened, hesitant phrases like, "I think," "as far as I recall," and "maybe around that time." Instead of offering firm timelines, he spoke in approximations. Instead of solid details, he offered possibilities. These little hedges, scattered throughout his statements, made it challenging for investigators to reconstruct a reliable timeline of events. And when every minute matters in a missing child case, vague recollections only widen the gap investigators are trying to close. Complicating matters further were the conflicting accounts about who checked on the children that day and when those checks supposedly happened. Different individuals gave different versions of the sequence. Some insisted the children were looked in on at specific times, while others recalled entirely different points in the day. These contradictions created a tangle of narratives, each one muddying the investigative trail. When stories change, or when multiple timelines compete, it becomes impossible to build a single dependable chronology. And without a clear timeline, determining what happened, and when, becomes significantly harder. Beyond the immediate events of that day, investigators also had to consider the children's history. School records and attendance reports painted a picture of chronic illnesses and frequent absences long before the disappearance. Teachers noted patterns that raised questions, not only about the siblings' health, but about the consistency of the explanations given over time. These records alone cannot answer what happened in May, but they add context to the children's well-being and the environment they were living in, which has become a crucial part of understanding the bigger picture. Another point of scrutiny has been the claim that the front door of the home couldn't be used. According to certain accounts, the door was supposedly jammed or non-functional, and therefore not a possible exit route for the children. But this is a claim that investigators know can be physically tested. Doors either function or they don't. Hinges, locks, and frames can all be examined. If the door was easily passable, then that challenges earlier statements. If it was truly inoperable, that supports the alternative narrative. Either way, this is one of the few elements of the case that can be verified through simple physical inspection. As observers try to make sense of the available information, one theory has emerged that some believe could explain several of the confusing details. The idea of an accidental death followed by a cover-up. Supporters of this theory argue that it accounts for the conflicting timelines, the vague interview responses, and the unusual language used by certain individuals. It could also explain why no one seems to agree on who last saw the children, and at what exact moment. But investigators have emphasized an important point. This remains a hypothesis, not a conclusion. Without hard evidence, no scenario can be accepted as fact. Even the K-9 search results, often viewed by the public as definitive, have limitations. In this case, the dogs did not detect certain expected scents, leading some to assume that meant the children were never near certain areas. But professionals stress that K-9 non-detections are inherently inconclusive. Weather, terrain, scent contamination, time elapsed, and how the dogs were deployed all impact results. A non-detection is not proof of absence. It is simply one data point that must be interpreted carefully, not taken as a standalone answer. At this stage of the investigation, what authorities need more than anything is solid, objective evidence. Phone logs that confirm exact call times. Timestamps that establish where people were at key moments. Uncompressed video files that show original metadata. School, medical, and public records that verify routines, patterns, and inconsistencies. Only with concrete documentation can investigators cut through the noise of conflicting statements and reconstruct a factual sequence of events. The disappearance of Jack and Lily remains a deeply painful story, one that has shaken their family, unsettled the community, and drawn attention far beyond the area where they were last seen. The unanswered questions continue to weigh heavily. How did two children disappear without an immediate trace? Who was truly present at the critical moments? Why do timelines diverge so dramatically? And what evidence will finally break open the truth? As investigators work to piece together the fragments, one thing is clear. The path to clarity will depend on facts, not speculation, on verified records, not shifting memories. Every detail matters, every discrepancy counts, and every lead, even those once dismissed, must be re-examined with fresh eyes. For now, the story remains open, its ending unwritten. But the search for answers continues with renewed determination, driven by the hope that truth, no matter how delayed, will ultimately come to light. And as more developments unfold, staying informed is essential, so be sure you're subscribed and ready for the next update.